Greetings, brothers and sisters. We'll be discussing today a very important topic and the real prize, the hidden gem within His Word of Truth. Now, sadly, this is something that has been overlooked by mankind as to the importance of His wisdom. We will declare the majesty, the supremacy of the Most High and His Son, Yeshua, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Discover that wisdom was a mystery and that was hidden. Now she is the hidden matzah, the tree of life. Now remember, the matzah was hidden during the Passover, and we know that this bread symbolized Yeshua. This is the same manna that was fed to the Israelites when they were in the wilderness. Now also, remember, Yeshua was born in the house of bread, Bethlehem. And also in John chapter 6, verse 25, we read, "For the bread of Elohim is the bread that comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." But you will learn a deeper mystery about this, and it has to do with His wisdom. Let's not also forget the power of wisdom. That man was shown two paths. He had only two choices from the very beginning. Finally, we will discuss the only hope for mankind and how he can be saved through these times ahead, which will determine his faith or destiny. Now consider, we are now at the time of the end when the books will be opened. This will be decided by those who either take the image of the beast, the mind of the serpent, and his mark of authority, or those who keep the commandments of Elohim. Ask yourself, do you want your name inscribed in the Lamb's Book of Life? Because the decisions we make now will echo into eternity. Now, also, let's consider these words carefully as we explore the wisdom of Elohim. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19. "I call heaven and earth to witness against you today that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curse. Therefore, choose life, that you and your offspring may live." So we were given a choice, and only two of them, either life or death. The Creator has made it simple. We had to choose one of them. By default, we are told that our minds were alienated from Elohim due to this nature that we have inherited for the tree of knowledge between good and evil. And this is related to the family tree and the knowledge that we have inherited in this world through Babylon. Now, we discovered that our nature was inclined to evil all the time. Now, what did you know that the word evil in Hebrew is actually the word for foolish person or a stupid person? That's the word evil. Now, what did the Creator say about us? He said these words in Jeremiah chapter 4, verse 22. "For my people are foolish. They have not known me. They are foolish children, and they have no understanding. They are wise to do evil, but to do good they have no knowledge." So you see, we've learned this wrong knowledge that has been in this world, and it has been passed on through generation, through the system of Babylon. And you see, they have never known Him for lack of knowledge and understanding. And we know that wisdom comes from the Most High. Now, also the Creator said these words in Proverbs chapter 12, verse 15. "The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but he who listens to counsel is wise." Now, about these two choices the Creator has given mankind. This is discussed very elegantly in wisdom, and I'm going to read Sirach chapter 15, verse 15. And these are the words. "If you want to, you can keep Jehovah's commands. You can decide whether you will be loyal to Him or not. He has placed fire and water before you, Reach out and take whichever you want. You have a choice between life and death. You will get whichever you choose. Jehovah's wisdom and power are great, and he sees everything. And he is aware of everything a person does, and he takes care of those who fear him. And he has never commanded anyone to be wicked or given anyone permission to sin. Now what is amazing is that he has placed this fire before us. Now fire symbolizes danger and destruction, and this is relating to the way of the evil one. And of course water symbolizing birth, life, and we had to choose one of these. I choose water, the life. So you see, it comes down to a case of loyalty to the king. He has never forced us to choose him. This was a choice we had to make for ourselves. We were to search out these matters, and he has sent his son, Yeshua, into this world to save it. But many have not listened to his wisdom. Now also, consider in Job chapter 32 verse 7, it says these: days should speak, and multitude of years should teach wisdom. This is why he tried them for 40 years in the wilderness. This both symbolizes the incubation period of a life in the womb and the average years of life before we get old, where our minds are formed. Now, for the most part, many of us are being indoctrinated, lied to, deceived, and given all kinds of knowledge from Babylon. And this has formed our minds. And, when we get old, it is very difficult to change our minds when new information is made available, because for the most part, people are very pride and arrogant, and they do not want to be corrected or refined. And this is what it is all about, this wilderness journey. We are to learn Elohim's wisdom and learn the truth about this world. Now, you see, we're at the time of the end, as prescribed by the Mighty One, and mysteries are being revealed, including all prophecy. Let's start to begin to unravel this mystery. Now, please keep in mind that the Most High has declared the following in his word. Proverbs chapter 25 verse 2. It is the glory of Elohim to conceal a matter. To search out a matter, it is the glory of kings. And we will also read the following. 1 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 7. We declare Elohim's wisdom, a mystery that has been hidden, and that Elohim is destined for our glory before time began. Now let us consider and observe carefully the following. Firstly, that Elohim has concealed and hidden things within his word, and that we were and are to search out these matters. Secondly, that this matter has to do with wisdom, which is a mystery. And finally, that wisdom was destined for our glory before time began, meaning that from the very start there was a master plan by the Most High. You see, the Creator foreknew us, which is why we were to live by faith, and that he has separated the wheat from the chaff by his word, which is his wisdom, and the promises he has made to Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. You see, we are the spiritual seed of Abraham. Let's not forget that the seed is the word, and the word is spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, the set-apart spirit from all creation, and highly exalted. Now, moreover, our brother Paul writes about this. Galatians chapter 3 verse 16. The promises were spoken to Abraham and to his seed. Scripture does not say and to seeds, meaning many people, but unto your seed, meaning one person, who is the Messiah. Now remember, we who are in Messiah are grafted into this olive tree. Now you see, this is the tree of life that was in the garden. Now isn't that amazing? And we are the inheritors of the promises, which is to do with this mystery that will be revealed. Now, consider carefully what we are told about wisdom. In Solomon chapter 6 verse 21, if your delight be then in thrones and scepters, O you kings of the people, honor wisdom, that you may reign forevermore. You see, kings were to honor and learn wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, so that they could govern wisely upon the earth. But you see, these rulers did not govern wisely upon the earth, or even for that matter, search out, go after, acknowledge, or even recognize the wisdom of Elohim. Now, this will be the focus of this discourse, and I will reveal from the word of truth the supremacy of Elohim's wisdom. Now, let's read these words and consider carefully what I'm about to reveal to you. In Proverbs chapter 9 verse 10, the fear of Jehovah is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the set-apart one is understanding. We are told that through fear we get real knowledge from the Mighty One, which is the beginning of his wisdom. But first, we need to firstly acknowledge, recognize the Creator, the Master, and the source of all creation, both visible and invisible, the known and the unknowns. Without his majesty, nothing could exist, meaning this world and its experiences could never be if it were not for the Creator. So you see, we owe him due respect and reverence. Now we are warned in the word to get wisdom. In Proverbs chapter 4 verse 5, it states, get wisdom, get understanding, forget it not, neither decline from the words of my mouth. Now wisdom is all about knowledge and understanding, because after all, if you have much knowledge but no understanding, what do you gain? You see, understanding helps us make the right choices and decisions based on experiences. But if we are not learning, we are not getting understanding, then how can we govern or rule? Now you see, wisdom is our teacher, and we need to listen to wisdom, and we need to learn. Now this fear has dual meanings. Firstly, acknowledging and recognizing that he is the Mighty One, the Creator over all things, and has power over all dominions, both in the heavens and the earth. Everything is subjected unto him. Secondly, this fear has to do with awe and wonder at his magnificence and the extreme power he wields. Now we're told the following in Ecclesiasticus chapter 15 verse 10. For praise shall be uttered in wisdom, and Jehovah will prosper it. Now, what does this mean? Praise needs to be uttered in wisdom. That means we need to have knowledge and understanding of the Mighty One if we are to represent him and his majesty before mankind. Now let's observe a pattern with a Yeshua, right? We'll see something quite amazing. Now in Luke chapter 2 verse 40, we are told the following. The child continued to grow and become strong, increasing in wisdom, and grace was upon him. So you see, the child Yeshua grew strong. He kept increasing in wisdom, meaning he was learning. And Jehovah said he would prosper those who have wisdom, and we can see that in the life of Yeshua. Now also we see this in Luke chapter 2 verse 52 as well, and Yeshua kept increasing in wisdom and stature and favor with Elohim. Now also in Mark chapter 6 verse 2, it states the following. When the Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and the many listeners were astonished, saying, where does this man get these things? What is this wisdom given to him? And such miracles as these performed by his hands. You see, Jehovah had given Yeshua wisdom. And you see, Yeshua is Elohim's wisdom, and it's wisdom that has all this knowledge and understanding. Now, when Yeshua would speak these words to the crowd, they would recognize that he spoke with power and dominion, and he had great knowledge and understanding. Now, wisdom tells us this. Let's appreciate the power of wisdom. Now, herein is hidden wisdom again. In Psalms 154, in verse 5, it states the following: Wisdom has been given that the honor of Jehovah may be known, and it has been made known to men to tell of his works, to make known to children his strength, and to cause those who lack understanding to comprehend his glory. You see, we will not be able to grasp mentally his glory unless we have wisdom. And wisdom has been given to man for the very purpose that man can make known his works, but also make known to his children his strength. And his strength is always demonstrated in his weakness. And in verse 7 it states, who are far from his entrances and distant from his gates. So you see, those who lack understanding are very far from the Creator, and they will never be able to comprehend his glory. And also in verse 8, for the Elohim of Yaakov is exalted, and his glory is upon all his works. Now this is quite amazing, because you see, we're told in Romans chapter 1 verse 20, it says, for since the creation of the world, Elohim's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. Now we're told that we are to look upon the works of the Most High. So think about it. We're told that his qualities are invisible, but yet clearly seen and understood. Now, we're told to observe these. Now, in Ecclesiasticus chapter 33, verse 15, we're told, so look upon all the works of the Most High, and there are 2 and 2, one against another. So we have this two principle construct, and we're told that this is very obvious. And it actually becomes very obvious when we start to consider what I'm about to show you. Take, for example, we have the heaven and the earth. We have the sun and the moon. And I want you to observe there is 2 of them. There is night and day. There were 2 trees in the middle of the garden. We had the Adam and Eve. We've got Cain and Abel. We have Isaac and Ishmael. We have Yaakov and Esau. We have Israel and Judah. We have the Old Covenant and the New Covenant. There were those 2 tablets of stone. We have Moshe and Yeshua. Of course, we have 2 witnesses. There is good and evil, just like he gave us life and death. And also, he distinguished the wise from the foolish. And we have, of course, the book of life, and there is the book of the dead. And there is going to be the separation of the sheep and the goats, 2 groups again. And of course, the beginning and the end. Now we could go on and on, but these are the works of the Most High, and we are told to look upon them. And we notice that they are in twos, a pair. And we are told that they are invisible, but yet clearly seen, so that man is without excuse. You see, the Creator has made it plain, and he has only given man 2 choices, and this was from the very beginning. And in fact, this principle is built into all these works. Now there is so much of these works that we are to look upon and to observe the glory in them. Now we just looked at some of the works of the Most High, and there are so many, demonstrating the power of his hidden wisdom from the very beginning. We're told that his works are invisible, but clearly seen and understood if we really take a look. Now, the Creator has given mankind 2 eyes, 2 ears to see and to hear these things. Therefore, we have no excuse before him. Now, wisdom is everywhere in his word, and this is what the Creator intended for mankind to observe and to learn. But this has sadly been overlooked by many of us. In fact, we are told not even recognize or understood. Now in 1 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 8, none of the rulers of this age understood it, for if they had, they would not have crucified the Jehovah of glory. Now, is this not the truth, brothers and sisters? Now, we are told that kings get to rule through wisdom, and kings were meant to have wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, but we see that that's not the case. None of these rulers were wise. In fact, they didn't even recognize the power of wisdom. Now, who of us wants to be counted worthy to eat from the tree of life, and not be one of those foolish virgins who took no oil with them, meaning the spirit of wisdom? Brothers and sisters, let's return to the word of truth. Keep his covenant, his 10 commandments. And why? Because we are told the following in Ecclesiasticus chapter 1 verse 26. If thou desire wisdom. So we have to desire wisdom. It cannot be forced upon us. We must go after and seek wisdom. And we're told that keep the commandments, and Jehovah shall give her unto thee. Now, brothers and sisters, remember that wisdom is the eternal spirit and the tree of life. So if you want immortality, if you want to be counted worthy to stand before the Most High, then you better make sure that you are honoring and seeking and listening to his wisdom. Also, we are told the following in 1 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 30. But by his doing you are in Yeshua the Messiah, who became to us wisdom from Elohim, our righteousness, sanctification, and redemption. What this tells us is that wisdom is hidden in the Messiah, and we are to observe his wisdom. The Creator has hidden his wisdom from the very beginning, and it was referred to as a mystery, which is what these words declare in 1 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 7. No, we declare Elohim's wisdom, a mystery that has been hidden, and that Elohim has destined for our glory before time began, meaning before anything occurred. He had already had a plan, and it is through wisdom this plan was brought about. Because you see, Elohim's wisdom is the real knowledge and the hidden gem in his word. In fact, the whole word is all his wisdom, which is spirit, and its knowledge is the eternal tree of life. And through wisdom we can know and extol the name of the Mighty One, and declare his praise amongst the nations. Let's just reminisce for a moment on the parable of the 2 trees in the Garden of Eden. And I would like to focus on the tree of life. Now let's observe that Adam and Eve were directed to this tree the very first time they entered paradise. But they inclined to the tree of knowledge between good and evil, which they were warned to keep away from. For in the day that you eat of this knowledge, it would bring a death. And he's talking about a spiritual death here. And we see that after this transgression, the tree of life was removed far from the minds of Adam and Eve, who transgressed the Creator's commandment. Now, let's observe that this has never been discussed again thereafter in the word, the tree of life, until the very end in the book of Revelations. Now let's read the following words in Revelations chapter 2 verse 7. It states, "Whoever has ears, let them hear what the Spirit says to the assemblies. To the one who is victorious, I will give the right to eat from the tree of life, which is in paradise of Elohim." Now, brothers and sisters, what do we observe here? Well, first of all, we must have ears to listen, and we must hear what the Spirit is saying to the people and obey. And it is the Spirit that will give the right to eat from the tree of life. And to eat from the tree of life, and notice this tree of life is in the paradise of Elohim. Now, just like Adam and Eve ate from that tree of knowledge between good and evil, and they died. And in like manner, unless we eat from the tree of life, we will not have immortality. Now, the Creator did say that wisdom was hidden and was a mystery from the very beginning. Now, let's observe. Wisdom is the tree of life. This is spoken of in Proverbs, because you see, wisdom tells us these things. In Proverbs chapter 3 verse 18, "She is a tree of life to those who take hold of her. Those who hold her fast will be blessed." And also, this right to eat from the tree of life symbolizes immortality and the knowledge and the wisdom and the understanding that is given to us. Now, wow, what an amazing Elohim we serve. He declares these words in 1 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 19. "For the wisdom of this world is foolishness in Elohim's sight. As it is written, he catches the wise in their craftiness." Now this craftiness is really shrewdness, and is demonstrated by the skilled in deception. And this is what it's speaking about, these people who are shrewd but skilled at deception. You see, he catches these by his wisdom, because his wisdom is very powerful. Now, brothers and sisters, let us consider these words and the power of wisdom, which is his Spirit. In Job chapter 34, it states the following in verse 14, "If Elohim were to withdraw his Spirit, all life would disappear, and mankind would turn again to dust." Verse 16, "Listen now and try to understand." So you see, this is the same Spirit given to the born-again believer, and let's observe the Spirit is very powerful. Now let us remember, this is the deposit which we were given and will be required of us when we stand before his presence. Now in 2 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 22, he set a seal of ownership on us and put his Spirit in our hearts as a deposit, guaranteeing what is to come. Now let us not be foolish about these words, as we are told in the word of truth, "Many are called, but only a few is chosen." What is the meaning of this? Well, those who keep his covenant and listens to his Spirit will be found worthy to eat from the tree of life. They will be the chosen ones. Now, the Spirit tells us very clearly in Wisdom chapter 1 verse 5, "For the Ruach HaKodesh of discipline will flee from the deceitful, and will withdraw himself from thoughts that are without understanding, and he shall not abide when unrighteousness comes in." Meaning the Spirit will not stay with you. It will depart from the corrupted temple, the mind. Now doesn't the word state that they have not known his ways and that they lack understanding? So you see, the Spirit will withdraw from thoughts that are without understanding. Now considering that he has already foretold that everything would become corrupted and defiled in the end, meaning the many. Okay? So Is it any wonder, brothers and sisters, that his word declares the following? In Matthew chapter 7 verse 23, and then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. Wow, now that's a sobering awakening. So let's make sure, brothers and sisters, that we are not one of those. So in other words, 2 Peter verse 1, chapter 1, states the following in verse 5. For this very reason, make every effort to add to your faith virtue, and to virtue knowledge, and to knowledge self-control, and to self-control perseverance, and to perseverance godliness, and to godliness brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness love. For if you possess these qualities and continue to grow in them, you see, the Spirit was to be planted, the seed in the mind, but it was to grow. And it states they will keep you from being ineffective and unproductive in your knowledge of Adonai, Yeshua the Messiah. But whoever lacks these traits is nearsighted to the point of blindness, having forgotten that he is being cleansed from his past sins. Therefore, brothers, strive to make your calling and election sure. For if you practice these things, you will never stumble, and you will receive a lavish reception into the eternal kingdom of our Lord and Savior, Yeshua the Mashiach. So you see, when the Spirit abides with us, there are many things we need to grow in, such as knowledge and self-control, and of course perseverance, and of course brotherly love. You see, we are to possess these in increasing measure, meaning we are to keep growing, because if we are not growing, it means we have died. Now, if we have not produced the fruit of immortality, which comes from the Spirit, then it means the Spirit is not with you. And it is the Spirit that teaches us to know the Most High and His ways. Let's read 2 Baruch chapter 51 and in verse 1. And it shall come to pass, when that appointed day has gone by, that then shall the aspect of those who are condemned be afterwards changed, and the glory of those who are justified. Now this is speaking about the clothing with the immortality, the heavenly body. And we pick up in verse 2, for the aspect of those who are now act wickedly, right, shall become worse than it is, as they shall suffer torment. Also, as for the glory of those who have now been justified in my law, who have had understanding in their life, and who have planted in their heart the root of wisdom. Now, remember the parable of the farmer and the seed in Matthew 13. You see, wisdom gives us knowledge and understanding. So we are to plant the root of wisdom. And I can testify to these words because I've had understanding in my life, and I feel the root of wisdom. Now, then their splendor shall be glorified in changes, and the form of their face shall be turned into the light of their beauty. Now, this is amazing, brothers and sisters, because what do we observe in these words? Well, this is reminiscent of the transfiguration of Yeshua when his face shone with glory, the wisdom emanating from within him. So you see, that's quite deep. That they may be able to acquire and receive the world which does not die, which is then promised to them. You see, the Creator has made promises to those who keep his ways that they will enter the promised land. So he keeps his promises, and he is very consistent. Verse 4, for over this and above all shall those who come then lament, that they rejected my law, and stopped their ears that they might not hear wisdom or receive understanding. So you see, there's going to be a lot of lamenting in that day, because many people rejected his law, his 10 commandments. They stopped their ears that they might not hear wisdom and or receive understanding. So you see, that's quite deep there, because it is wisdom that gives us understanding, and wisdom comes from the Spirit of Elohim. Verse 5, when therefore they see those whom over they are now exalted, but who shall then be exalted and glorified more than they? They shall respectively be transformed, the latter into the splendor of angels, and the former shall yet more waste away in wonder at the visions and the beholding of the forms. For they shall first behold, and afterwards depart to be tormented. Let's pick up in verse 7. But those who have been saved by the works, and to whom the law has been now a hope, and understanding and expectation, and wisdom a confidence, shall wonders appear in a time. So you see, this is speaking about the end, and it's speaking about those who have had understanding in their life and the law a hope, and have not rejected the Creator's covenant, his commandments. And wisdom a confidence, because you see, wisdom is so powerful, and it is through wisdom we get to know the Most High. And remember, we're just talking about the root. I mean, it hasn't even grown yet. It's just the beginning. And you see, that's an amazing thing about the paradox of wisdom. The more you know, the less you know. And in fact, what you think you know, you don't know. But you see, it is through wisdom. And we have to get the root of wisdom. Wisdom needs to grow within us, and wisdom is the Spirit of Elohim. Now in verse 8, for they shall behold the world which is now invisible to them, and they shall behold the time which is now hidden from them, and time shall no longer age them. For in the heights of that world shall they dwell, and they shall be made like unto the angels, and be made equal to the stars. And they shall be changed into every form they desire, from beauty into loveliness, and from the light into the splendor of glory. Wow, that's talking about some very deep stuff there, brothers and sisters. You know, the fact is that whatever the Creator is going to bestow upon his people, it's going to give them incredible abilities that will be able to do things like change, transform themselves into any form they desire. Now that's very reminiscent of many accounts in the Word, when Yeshua appeared to the people in a different form on the road to Emmaus. You see, they didn't recognize him, because you see, you can become any form you wish, or any look you wish, and that's quite deep really when we consider those things. But this is what will be bestowed upon those who receive the body of immortality. Now, verse 11, for there shall be spread before them the extents of paradise, and there shall be shown to them the beauty of the majesty of the living creatures. Now these are the 4 creatures below the throne, which are beneath the throne. And listen, and the armies of the angels, who are now held fast by my word, lest they should appear, and are held fast by a command, that they shall stand in their places till their advent comes. Now this kind of reminds me of the day the Lord returns with 10,000 of his holy ones to execute judgment upon the earth. Also verse 11, moreover, there shall then be excellency in the righteous, surpassing that in the angels. For the first shall receive the last, those whom they were expecting, and the last those of whom they used to hear that they have passed away. And here we go, brothers and sisters, verse 14. For they have been delivered from this world of tribulation, and laid down the burden of anguish. For what then have men lost their life, And for what have those who are on the earth exchanged their soul? For then they chose not for themselves this time, which beyond the reach of anguish could not pass away. So you see, there was a choice. You could choose life or receive death. And this is what it's speaking about. And it says, but they chose for themselves that time whose issues are full of lamentations and evils. And they denied the world which ages not, those who come to it. And they rejected the time of glory, so that they shall not come to the honor of which I told you before. Now, another very important mystery I would like to discuss, and it has to do with these MOEDims. The Hebrew word MOED means appointed times, and there were 7 of them. Now, also encoded in this is also Elohim's hidden wisdom. They describe his plan about the past, present, and the future, the new man, the new creation. Now, wisdom teaches us in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1, there is an appointed time for everything, and there is a time for every event under heaven, a time to give birth and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted. Now, that Hebrew word used here is actually the word zeman, which also means appointed time. Meaning there is a season, an order, and a purpose to everything in this world. And this is by Elohim's design. Now we notice we plant in springtime, as it is the best time to plant seed for the harvest, symbolizing growth. What do we observe that during the winter seasons? Well, plants stop growing. Their metabolism slows down. And this plantation is about the planting of the new man, the new mind of wisdom. And this is the idea of the spring and the fall MOEDs. Also, these align with the former and the latter rain, referred to in Joel. And it has everything to do with the work of the Ruach HaKodesh. Now, these appointed times are introduced in Leviticus chapter 23, verse 37. These are the appointed times. Now, the word here is MOED of Yehovah, which you shall proclaim as set apart convocations, assemblies, to present offerings by fire to Yehovah, burnt offerings and grain offerings, sacrifices and drink offerings. And listen, it says, each day's matter on its own day. Now, these 7 appointed times are very deep and profound. Now, notice it states that each day is on matter at its proper time. Now, what you will discover, brothers and sisters, is that the Creator has signified so many of His works, His perfections, and He has drawn our attention to this number 7, which we have become to learn and realize it has to do with completion and perfection. And this number also has to do with His wisdom. Let's remember, He stated from the very beginning that it took 7 days for creation and completion of His works. And that 7th day He rested. And also, we have this ordinance of this 7-day a week cycle, which all nations upon the earth observe. Now, this 7-day period is symbolizing this 7,000 years to perfect and complete all these works. Now, wisdom also teaches us in Psalms 90, verse 12, teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. And I would often wonder about the meaning of this. Why numbers? And He has drawn our attention to this. And we were to gain a heart of wisdom. Now, this is clearly what the Creator wanted His children to discover and attain. He also states in Matthew chapter 10, verse 30, and even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. So, numbers are very important. And after all, He tells us in 2 Ezra chapter 4, verse 37, by measure had He measured the times, and by number had He numbered the times. And He does not move nor stir them, until the said measure be fulfilled. So that's why everything continued as it was ordained, and everything would be completed when the measure was completed, the 144,000. Now also, think about it. He measured everything. There were 12 tribes, 12 apostles. We have 12 hours in a day. There are 12 months in a year. We notice that the new Jerusalem has 12 gates, 12 angels, and 12 foundations. Now, this is just some examples. Now, this is very clear if we look, and we were to gain a heart of wisdom, meaning we need to seek his knowledge, discover the meaning of these things for his wisdom, and most importantly, to gain understanding. Now, that Hebrew word lev means heart, but also the inner man, his mind, the spirit. Now, let's not also forget that the Creator formed this world for his wisdom. Proverbs chapter 3 verse 19. And he has poured his wisdom out upon all his works. Now, so let's keep these matters in our thoughts as we look deeper into these MOEDs. First, did you know that the very first 7 Hebrew words in Bereshit describe the Creator's plan from the very beginning? Now, I'm not going to go into this matter in detail here, but I recommend watching the video I made called The Wisdom of Elohim, the Aleph, and the Tav. But suffice to say, these first 7 words map to the 7 days of creation. Now, the 4th word representing the 4th day of creation is the Aleph and the Tav. I recall when I first started to learn the basics of Hebrew, the Spirit gave me the understanding that these words represented the Word, which is His Spirit, which is the Messiah, the Savior. And John alludes to this in John chapter 1 verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. And let's not forget, even the Messiah told us himself that he is the Aleph and the Tav in Revelations chapter 22 verse 13. He said, I am the Aleph and the Tav, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Now, what do we observe occurred on that 4th day? Remember, that 4th word is the Aleph and the Tav, and it's referring to the Word, and also referring to Yeshua. Well, that 4th day symbolizing 4,000 years into creation. Well, the Messiah showed up exactly on that 4th day to destroy that 4th beast, the kingdoms of Satan, and also to establish his eternal kingdom. This is the new covenant which began this process that would conclude with the destruction of the beast kingdoms. Now, also, what do we observe about these appointed times? Also notice that Yeshua fulfilled precisely those 4 spring MOEDs, or those appointed times. And these are his visitations where he fulfilled precisely at the appointed times, and he also tabernacled amongst us. So we see that many of his works occurred on that 4th day of creation. Now notice that there are 3 remaining MOEDs, and notice they occur in the fall season. Now this is symbolizing both the end, death, judgment, destruction, but there will also be mercy to those who have their transgressions atoned for. Now, what was occurring during these final 2 days which are coming to a close, meaning this 6,000 years of creation, that 6th day? Well, this is the day that Elohim rested from all his works, meaning these words and these appointed times were prophetic about the past, present, and the future. Now in Habakkuk, in chapter 2 verse 3, it says, for the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. Now remember, brothers and sisters, when Yeshua entered the heavenly sanctuary, he has been fulfilling these appointed times in the heavenly realm. Now I'm talking about Yom Teruah, which is the blowing of the shofar. Well, what is this all about? Well, this is the gathering of his people, the assembly for the works of the Ruach HaKodesh. So during these 2,000 years, and this also aligns with the 7 trumpet blasts that are spoken of in Revelations, because it is directly connected with Yom Teruah. And this symbolized the heralding of the new year, the new creation, the solemn assembly, and also it was a memorial, a call to remember the Elohim of Israel, and an invitation to meet with him. And as is not being the case with what was being occurring with all of us being called to come back to the Creator, to his law, to his covenant, and this is exactly what has been going on in these times. Now the first time the shofar is mentioned is in Exodus 19 on Jabal Oz on Mount Sinai, where the 10 Commandments were given. Now this is also alluding to coming back to the covenant that he made at Mount Sinai. And it is the same covenant that Yeshua made with the people, where he would put his laws in the hearts and the minds of the people. Now, also this is the summoning of the tribes to the door of the tabernacle. It's also a time of warning, a time of announcement of the inaugurating a new king. So we see that this is very prophetic in its nature. Now also, what do we notice about Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement? Well, this is what Yeshua has been atoning for, and this is to do with the Ark, because actually the word Yom Kippur actually means to cover, and it can be found in the Hebrew name for the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant, which is called in Hebrew the Kaparet. Now notice also that this occurs on the 10th day, symbolizing the 10 Commandments. And it was on the 7th month, symbolizing that 7th day when he rested from all his works. And this is the Day of Atonement, the Day of Verdict, and the day you will be signed and sealed in the Lamb's Book of Life. Now isn't that quite amazing? Therefore, brothers and sisters, let us conclude with these amazing words, and let's reflect on what is spoken here, and understand that everything is prophecy, and that he has already foretold the end from the beginning. I recall when I was a young boy, and I speak about this in my testimony. I grew up in a very quiet place in Ireland, in a Catholic upbringing. I would be made to go to Sunday service. I recall on this one particular morning during service, looking around me at the Station of the Cross, the depiction of Yeshua's final days on earth. I remember thinking within myself as to why so much idolatry, and where did it go so wrong. Now I can look back in retrospect and see that it was the Spirit of Elohim that was working in my life even then, and preparing me for the calling out of this corrupted and defiled system of Babylon, and of course preparing me for who I would become. We should give praise and honor to our Creator and His Son Yeshua, His Spirit of wisdom. Now, brothers and sisters, how befitting these words. Listen carefully. Joel 2. It states, "Blow the trumpet in Zion, sound the alarm on my holy hill. Let all who live in the land tremble, for the day of Jehovah is coming." Now listen, verse 12, symbolizing the time of the end. "Even now, declares Jehovah, return to me with all your heart." That word heart is the Hebrew word lev, meaning your inner mind, meaning your being. And it states with fasting and weeping and mourning. Verse 13, rend your heart and not your garments. The Creator wants our heart, our mind, to be dedicated to Him. And He wants all of us. Return to Jehovah your Elohim, for He is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, and abounding in love. And he, listen, relents from sending calamity. You see, brothers and sisters, we are far from his entrances and distant from his courts, so we need to return to him. And you see, it is through wisdom. It is through the power of wisdom that we can stand before the Mighty One. But first, we need to be in covenant. We need to be listening to the Spirit. And we need to return to him. Because time is running out, brothers and sisters. And there is calamity coming. And there is judgment. And we want to make sure, brothers and sisters, we are found worthy to stand before him. Before his King, Yeshua. So, brothers and sisters, let us return to our Creator who keeps his promises. And blessed are those who have put their trust in him. Thank you for listening to the word, the wisdom of Elohim.